king of German mercenaries.
Chapter 311, Successful Inducement. After Hayter received Marin's order, he was ready to set off. In order to boost his momentum, Marin lent him the golden-laid carriage he used for his wedding. Then, in addition to 10 tall knights wearing half-plate armor who followed Hayter closely, there were also 100 light cavalrymen riding along on horseback. During this trip, Hayter wore a luxurious purple silk robe and also brought a box of gold coins given to him by Marin as activity funds. After arriving in Cologne, Hayter stayed in a top hotel next to the University of Cologne in a high-profile manner, and even reserved the entire hotel. Then, Hayter followed the script given by Marin and paid a high-profile visit to the president of the University of Cologne, Cabritz, and presented him with a very generous gift. President Cabritz was also very happy when outstanding students returned to their alma mater after graduation. After all, the school would be proud of the graduate's success. Almost every university later included the names of famous alumni in the school introduction, both to show off and as a means to attract outstanding freshmen. As the Chief Justice of the County of East Frisia, Hayter was not very impressive. There were people who were doing better than him. However, most of those who were doing better than Hayter were from noble families, and their natural starting point was much higher than that of ordinary people. There was nothing to brag about. But Hayter is different. Hayter's family is just a wealthy merchant family. After all, he is from a commoner family. Among the graduates of the University of Cologne who are from a commoner family, Hayter can be said to be the best. Generally speaking, college students from commoner backgrounds, although in high demand, find it difficult to move to high positions. Because, except for new regimes like the County of East Frisia, other old principalities have a large number of old nobles. These old noble families have many children, and there are always one or two outstanding ones. Therefore, high-ranking positions such as Prime Minister and Chief Justice are not for children of commoners. At most, college students from commoner backgrounds will become deputies of high-ranking officials who are children of great nobles, or become judges in small towns, but will not become the pillars of a principality. This was the basic situation in the Middle Ages, because the aristocracy was very powerful and they basically controlled all the important positions. Only some less important positions were left to people of commoner origin and strong abilities. Just like the army, except for Marin's army and other mercenaries, it was difficult for ordinary people to get ahead in the regular army. Even in the mid-19th century, this situation was difficult to change. Civilian soldiers could only become non-commissioned officers at most. Above that, it was monopolized by the children of the nobility. It was not until the mid-19th century that the common people in Europe frequently revolted to fight for opportunities, and the ruling class compromised and allowed civilians to enter the upper echelons of politics and the military. Therefore, it was absolutely rare for a college student like Hayter, who was born in a commoner family, to become the Chief Justice of a county. Moreover, Marin also promised that when Geoffrey retired in the future, he would promote him to become the Prime Minister of the palace. Thanks to Hayter's efforts, Principal Cabritz finally agreed to let him give a speech to the graduates at this year's graduation ceremony. Then, the graduation ceremony of the University of Cologne in 1500 became a stage for Hayter to show off. This time, Hayter wore a very flashy gold-threaded robe and gold-rimmed glasses, looking like a great scholar and a successful person. According to Marin's script, Hayter briefly greeted his juniors on stage and then began to brag and show off. He told his juniors that a few years ago, he was just a civilian college student with nothing. Although someone was willing to hire him to do something, he was only asked to be an assistant to a big lawyer. But in the final analysis, this assistant is actually just an errand boy. It is similar to the apprentices in those handicraft industries. It takes at least 7 years to barely become a master. Then, he was sent to an unknown town to be a judge, or to become a legal assistant to some big shots, and began to gain experience with difficulty. Maybe, when he is about 40 years old, he will become a big lawyer or a judge with a little fame. However, since he met Marin, his life has changed dramatically. Hayter, who had just left, was directly appointed by Marin, who was eager for talent, as the mayor of Denburg, and was in charge of the government and justice of Texel Island, which gave him a great opportunity to exercise himself. After Marin took over East Frisia, he directly appointed him as the Chief Justice of East Frisia, and valued him very much. Then, Hayter proudly told his juniors that his salary was 1 gold coin per day, and he still had days off. In other words, Hayter's salary was as high as 365 gold coins per year. Not only that, Marin also provided him with housing and a carriage for free. Even the salary of the coachman and the feed for the draft horses were reimbursed by the government. This treatment immediately shocked all the students present. You know, in this era, the daily wage of ordinary Germans was only 2 pfennigs, and the daily wage of craftsmen was only 3 pfennigs. The daily wage of ordinary clerks was about 4 or 5 pfennigs. If it reached 12 pfennigs, that is, 1 shilling per day, it was definitely a high-ranking official. Of course, after becoming a high-ranking official, salary is no longer an important part of their income. As for the reason, everyone knows. When they graduated from the University of Cologne, these top students only earned about 6 pfennigs a day. And if they worked as assistants for big lawyers, they only earned 3 pfennigs a day, which was about the same as those craftsmen. Hader's daily salary of 60 pfennigs made these medieval college students who had not yet left the campus envious. Of course, they also knew that even if they went to East Frisia, they would not receive such a high salary. Because Hader was already the Chief Justice of East Frisia, he could receive such a high salary. If they went there at the beginning, they would probably not receive such a high salary. Hader was also very clear about this, so, according to Marin's script requirements, he told his younger classmates that as long as they went to East Frisia, there were plenty of positions. Not only that, their daily salary would be as high as 1 shilling at the beginning, which was twice as high as other places. Speaking of positions, East Frisia has many of them. Of the 5 cities in East Frisia, only the mayor of Auric, who is concurrently the mayor of Heidel, is a professional. The mayors of other cities are not very professional. Even the mayor of Norden is a semi-literate person with a second-grade primary school level at most. He even has difficulty reading the decrees of the county. Marin had planned to replace the mayors of the 5 cities with college students, but no college students were willing to join. Even for the mayor of Auric, Marin planned to replace him with a full-time person instead of letting Hader take the post part-time, because Hader was indeed very busy. Not only do the 5 mayors need college students, but the judges of the 5 cities also need professional college students. Because college students who have systematically studied law will definitely be more professional. Unlike now, they can only rely on some local elders who don't know much about the legal provisions to solve the problem. Therefore, Marin authorized Hader to spend a lot of money to deceive his juniors. Anyway, in the territory of East Frisia, there are many positions such as mayors, judges, tax officials, etc., but there is a lack of people. At the same time, every university student who is willing to go will be immediately provided with a house and a carriage, horse carriage, with a starting salary of 1 shilling a day, and each person will be given a lot of land, 100 acres. Afraid that the students were not clear about the benefits of the land, Hader mysteriously told them that if they were given the land, the annual benefits would be no less than 2,000 gold coins. This is the most frightening part. According to the salary, Hader only gets 365 gold coins a year. However, because Marin rewarded him with 100 ugrams, 200 acres, of land, his annual income is about 4,000 gold coins. This is where he can really get rich. The graduates from the University of Cologne who were of noble origin were fine, but the college students who were of common origin and from poor noble families were a little dizzy. Before, the high salary of 1 shilling a day had already tempted them. Now, the big gift package of 2,000 golden gold coins a year has come down, and most people really can't afford it. Therefore, many university graduates who already had a job offer were tempted. So, more than a dozen college students from common and impoverished noble families came to Hader for consultation that night. In response, Hader entertained them warmly and ordered the court chef sent by Marin to prepare very rich and delicious meals for his junior classmates. Both the host and the guests enjoyed the meal very much. After the banquet, Heidel also warmly invited these juniors to go to East Frisia for a field trip. Then, the round-trip fare was reimbursed. Before parting, Heidel stuffed a small bag of gold coins into each junior who came to consult in the name of reimbursement of round-trip fare in advance. Although it was not much, only 10 gold coins, but it was definitely enough for them to take a round trip between Cologne and East Frisia, and there was still a lot left. So, when Hader was returning, 13 of his juniors packed their bags and asked to go with Hader. Basically, these 13 graduates from the University of Cologne were all tempted. Later, they did become officials of the county of East Frisia, and were nicknamed 13 Tai Bao by Marin, and were later reused. Although they were all induced by bribes, Marin did not think there was anything wrong with it. Because, when they just graduated, they had no one to be loyal to, so it was normal that they were not induced by bribes. Only those who had masters and were induced by bribes had moral problems. After all, there is nothing wrong for a college graduate to pursue high treatment. Besides, which country's civil servants do not love money? UFA's civil servants do not love money probably only exists in fantasy. As long as they are properly supervised and these people do not ask for money, Marin will not care. Besides, the land that Marin distributed is enough for their family to spend lavishly. However, Hader was very dissatisfied. Why? Because Marin had promised that if he could recruit 20 people, he would give his second son a non-hereditary knighthood. In this regard, Marin said that this promise is not only valid this year. If Hayter can recruit 7 people next year, plus this year's 13, making a total of 20 people, this condition will still be valid. Of these 13 college students, 4 were studying law and were naturally assigned to Hayter's management. They first studied with Hayter for 1 or 2 years and were then assigned to serve as judges in several cities. The other 3 students who studied administration also stayed in Auric first and learned how to handle Auric's government affairs from Hayter. After 1 or 2 years of internship, they were assigned to serve as mayors. The 2 students who studied finance naturally followed Kohler. In fact, their knowledge was much better than Kohler's. For this reason, Kohler was very nervous, fearing that they would take his job. But Marin told Kohler that although others were talented, Marin did not trust them. Therefore, Kohler still had to serve as the Minister of Finance and supervise the flow of funds. Even if the 2 college students were very good, Kohler had to sign in the end because he was Marin's confidant. There were only 4 students studying literature, and Marin didn't know how to arrange them. In the end, they were all arranged to be Marin's secretaries, and they would learn by his side first. If they were well trained, they could be sent out. Of course, because they had not studied administrative management, Marin specifically asked them to consult and learn from those students who had studied management. In this way, these 4 people could stay by his side for a few years to train, and then they could be sent out. At the same time, their presence could also liberate Marin appropriately. For example, Marin and Jeffrey would not have to write some notices personally, but could hand them over to the 2 college students in the literature department, and then hand them over to Marin for review. Even Marin's speech drafts could be tried to be written by these 4 secretaries. The premise is that the 4 of them must first adapt to their own style. Chapter 3:12 Jewish Rabbi Rabbi is a very special one among the 13 graduates of the University of Cologne, because he is a Jew. Rabbi's father was a Jewish businessman in Cologne. He was not very rich, but he had some money. So the old rabbi paid money and used his connections to send the young rabbi, who had been a good student since childhood, to the University of Cologne to study financial management so that he could become a financial officer for some noble lord in the future. Jews have long been discriminated against in Europe. Although many of them are relatively wealthy, they are very low-key. If they were high-profile, they might be harvested by the nobles. Therefore, Jews often have money but no political status, and are often bullied by tax collectors and guards at the city gates. For example, ordinary people only need to pay 1 or 2 pfennigs to enter the city. But Jews, if recognized, have to pay double. There is no way, Jews are treated as fat sheep by those who collect taxes. Therefore, the old rabbi sent the young rabbi to the University of Cologne, hoping that the young rabbi would become a nobleman's subordinate and become an official. In this way, the rabbi family would not be bullied. However, the old rabbi forgot one thing, that is, as a traditional Jewish family, the rabbi family has always insisted on believing in Judaism and has not converted to Catholicism. In Spain, the Spanish kings expelled all Jews who converted to Catholicism. In other regions, although Jews who believed in Judaism were not expelled, they were never considered their own people. Therefore, the rabbi and his son were surprised to find that no one came to win over the young rabbi when he was about to graduate from college. It's not that no nobles had asked about it, but they gave up when they heard that the rabbi was not a Catholic. Because many nobles who were devout Catholics were unwilling to hire pagans to work for them. You know, although both Judaism and Catholicism believe in God, Judaism does not recognize the status of Jesus as the Son of God, and Christians are of course dissatisfied. In the Middle Ages, religious issues could lead to wars, so Jews who did not recognize Jesus' Judaism were naturally not accepted by those devout Catholic nobles. So, the young rabbi was depressed to find that after graduating from the University of Cologne, no nobles seemed to want him. Hayter reported the rabbi's problem to Marin. Hayter asked Marin how to deal with this Jewish man. Marin quickly gave his instructions. As long as the rabbi did not oppose Catholicism and did not argue with others about religious issues, he could be accepted. Marin's consideration was necessary. He was not afraid of accepting Jews, but he was afraid of encountering fanatical Jews. Because some fanatical Jews would argue with people about who is the true God. In the Middle Ages, anyone who dared to question God or Jesus was a pagan. Therefore, Marin had to make sure that the rabbi had no such problem. Otherwise, if he used such a person, he would also be implicated. After Hayter's probing, he found that the young rabbi was not fanatical about religion, but was keen on being an official. Then Hayter accepted him. The young rabbi was also one of the first 13 people who defected to Marin. As a Jew, Rabbi had a great talent for business. Of course, he also had a good talent for mathematics. In fact, Rabbi's mathematical calculation ability was much better than Kohler's, and also better than another finance major classmate who came with him. Kohler was very nervous about the arrival of the two college students, fearing that they would take his job. However, Marin comforted Kohler in time. Marin knew that Kohler was smart and capable, but in terms of knowledge, Kohler was far behind the two college students. This was because Kohler had never been to school since he was a child. He only learned accounting skills from Jewish merchants in the town, which was only at the level of elementary school mathematics. Of course, the math of college students in this era was not very good, and was equivalent to the level of junior high school students in later generations. There was no way, the times had not yet developed. Before Catholicism was defeated by religious beliefs, European science and technology had not yet made great progress. Therefore, the overall level of math knowledge of college students in this era was similar to that of junior high school students in later generations, and only in a few areas did they reach the high school level. As for the advanced math knowledge of college students such as calculus, Newton and Gauss, who caused people to fail their exams, had not yet been born. However, although the mathematics knowledge of college students in this era is just as so, their brains are very flexible and their logical thinking ability is also strong. After all, they are the elites of this era. In the end, Marin planned to hand over all the specific financial matters to two more professional college students. However, the final signing power was left to Kohler, his confidant. After all, civil servants love money and cannot do without supervision. Although Kohler's level is average, his loyalty is not a problem after long-term observation. With Kohler managing the funds, Marin is not afraid of being cheated. Of course, Marin would not allow these two college students to join Kohler and become Kohler's followers. Therefore, when he had nothing to do, Marin would still sow discord between them and Kohler. Regarding major issues related to funds, Marin still did not want all his accountants to be of the same mind. Marin personally investigated the rabbi, who was a Jewish rabbi, and found that he was very sensitive to money and had a good business sense. Therefore, Marin planned to train him well as an important financial expert. Jews have low status and are easy to be suppressed. Therefore, even if Marin promoted the rabbi to an important position, he would not worry about the rabbi becoming too powerful. Because he is a Jew, it is difficult for him to attract many followers. Even if he attracts followers, they are all inferior people. It is easy to praise such a person, and it is also easy to bring him down. Unlike the locals, if they become powerful, it is easy to form a huge network of relationships. Even if Marin wants to move, he has to consider the consequences. Therefore, Marin assured Rabbi to serve as Kohler's assistant to help deal with financial issues. In addition, Marin also explained the double-entry bookkeeping method and table bookkeeping method that were popular in later generations to the two whole college students. As expected of a Jewish man, the rabbi quickly understood the essence of the two advanced bookkeeping methods and quickly mastered them. The other college student and Kohler were still confused. In fact, Marin didn't understand much either. Marin understood the tabular bookkeeping method, which was very simple. As for the double-entry bookkeeping method, Marin only knew the general principle and had never done it himself. Therefore, he also explained it to the three people in a daze, and the three people also learned it in a daze. But Rabbi was talented and soon figured out the double-entry bookkeeping method and applied it to his work. Because of his amazing talent, Rabbi didn't know that Kohler and another college student, Jacques, were jealous of him. So, Rabbi was quietly excluded by the two. Marin knew this very well, but he did not interfere. But on the surface, he supported Rabbi even more. Only the lonely ministers were worthy of the emperor's trust. Marin has conceived countless times how he will rule in the future. In Marin's eyes, Kohler is his black glove who helps him do some shady things. However, Kohler has a large number of shady forces under his command, which makes Marin a little uneasy. Therefore, Marin planned to let another trusted confidant, Saul, become his gray glove. The so-called gray gloves are a force in secret, but they don't do bad things. Usually, they are responsible for protecting themselves and monitoring others in secret. Even Kohler's power has to be monitored to avoid backlash. In general, the power under Kohler is somewhat similar to the American CIA, Central Agency, in later generations. It is responsible for external affairs and specializes in making trouble, while the power formed by Saul is similar to the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is mainly responsible for internal surveillance. The two forces are not subordinate to each other, but supervise each other. This is the ideal state in Marin's mind. Moreover, Saul is now the commander-in-chief of Marin's reconnaissance troops, and is good at setting up secret sentries and surveillance. After several years of training, Saul has also become an experienced scout commander. Marin asked Saul to form spies and secret guards to protect the safety of himself and his family, which is a professional match. Kohler, on the other hand, mainly recruits some scoundrels and desperados, who specialize in doing things that are not allowed to be seen in the light. Kohler's jealousy of the rabbi was also secretly observed by Saul's men. Marin was very happy about this. In terms of finance, people from different factions must be in charge together to make people feel at ease. Otherwise, if Kohler embezzles money, they are all Kohler's men, and Marin will not know it. You know, Kohler is still young, and he still has loyalty and blood, so he will naturally not embezzle money. If a bureaucrat works for a long time and gets older, he may become greedy. Therefore, it is also important to place people who are not of the same mind as Kohler in the financial department. Avoid Kohler's greed in the future and cause harm. After all, as Marin's business grows bigger, the amount of money he will handle in the future will be staggering. Therefore, necessary precautions are also very important. And Rabbi is an important chess piece that Marin has trained to monitor the flow of funds. As long as Kohler and Rabbi do not get together, then with Rabbi around, Kohler will not be able to embezzle. Similarly, with Kohler around, Rabbi will not be able to embezzle. In the future, Marin also plans to recruit more financial personnel, and they must be neither from Kohler nor from Rabbi's faction. It is safest for people from multiple factions to manage finances together. Of course, as Kohler was a close confidant, Marin still had to appease him. Shortly after promoting Rabbi, Marin rewarded Kohler with a large amount of money and repeatedly stated that the position of finance minister still belonged to Kohler and no one could take it away. Chapter 313 Large plate glass Romani was a glass craftsman who had signed a lifetime contract with Marin when Venice was sold to him, and he was the main person in charge of the glass greenhouse arranged by Marin. Previously, Morigen and Bader had brought a batch of oriental herbal seeds and asked Romani to build a glass greenhouse to cultivate these seeds. So Romani took on this task. On the island of Texel, Romani built a small glass greenhouse to grow the various herbs brought by Morgan and Battelle. Later, these successfully cultivated herbs were tested outside Texel Island, and most of them survived. Moreover, Marin even arranged a manor to grow the most inconspicuous Artemisia odorifera. Marin knew very well that it was the legendary Artemisia annua, the source of artemisinin for treating malaria. Therefore, after Marin occupied East Frisia and established Auric as the capital, he built a new manor next to the horse farm in the north of the city, which was specially used to grow Artemisia annua. Of course, other herbs were also planted. It can be said that this manor next to the horse farm has become a herbal medicine base. However, Marin recently had a sudden idea to grow spices and vegetables. So, Romani was called from Texel Island to Auric to build another glass greenhouse to try growing spices such as ginger and pepper. In addition, Marin can also eat fresh vegetables in winter. Marin's tastes vary greatly from person to person. Europeans of this era had strong tastes, especially male nobles, who particularly liked to eat pepper. They would dip roasted meat in pepper and eat bread with spices. It seemed that if they didn't eat spices, they couldn't show off their noble status. Moreover, most men like to eat meat and don't like to eat vegetables. This is not surprising, because Europeans of this era eat vegetables raw. What do vegetables taste like when eaten raw? Of course, it's not good. Therefore, few people like to eat vegetables. But Marin knows that eating vegetables helps to supplement vitamins and is good for health. Moreover, vegetables are delicious if they are fried well. Especially in winter, when vegetables are scarce, it is very uncomfortable to eat meat all day. In the past few winters, Marin often wanted to eat vegetables. Before, because he had to grow herbs and didn't have much sodium carbonate, he couldn't make glass on a large scale. But now it's different. Marin bought a lot of sodium carbonate from Venice and couldn't use it all. So, Marin planned to start making glass products and build a few more glass greenhouses. So, Romani took a group of Venetian glassmakers and began to make glass to build a new glass greenhouse north of Auric. When Marin was free, he went to watch them make glass and build a greenhouse. However, when he got there, he found that the glass blocks made by Romani and others were a little small. How small is it? A little bigger than the palm of your hand. As for why it is so small, the reason is very simple. When craftsmen such as Romani made glass pieces, they all used blown glass. Yes, these glass products are all blown by craftsmen. Each glass craftsman uses a special pipe and special skills to blow the condensed glass liquid before it cools down, and blows it into the shape they want. Under the processing of these skilled craftsmen, the glass liquid is blown into the shape of cups, bottles, or other works of art. However, the flat glass pieces are so small that when building a glass greenhouse is made up of many glass pieces. Therefore, the frames of the glass greenhouse built by Romani are so dense. Then, the gaps between the frames are so small that they can just fit the glass pieces that are the size of a palm. However, because the frame density is too high, the light transmittance is greatly reduced. Marin suddenly remembered that the technology for producing large pieces of glass seemed to have only appeared in 1688, and it seemed to use the roller pressing method, which is to use a metal roller to roll a ball of softened glass liquid horizontally to make it flat. Although the upper surface of the metal roller will be a little uneven, it's okay, just polish it with sandpaper. Unlike the previous blowing method, because the glass liquid cools quickly, there is no time to blow out large pieces of glass. The emergence of the roller pressing method not only makes it possible to produce large pieces of glass, but also at a low cost. After all, glass blowing is a relatively advanced craft that ordinary people cannot do. If each piece of glass is blown by a master craftsman, the cost is indeed very high. The roller pressing method can be easily done by ordinary craftsmen, and it is extremely efficient, so the cost is naturally low. When Marin mentioned the roller pressing method, it immediately aroused Romine's great interest. So they made a groove with parallel sides and a smooth copper rod. When the glass melts in the crucible, the craftsman will pour the glass into another container, and when the liquid glass begins to thicken, pour it into the groove. Then, the copper rod is placed on the edges of the grooves that are flush on both sides, and rolled over like a stone roller to press down the protruding surface. In this way, a large piece of glass that looks like a flat plate is formed. Next, the formed large glass block will be sent to the annealing furnace for annealing together with the grooves. After annealing, the craftsman takes out the large flat glass with a flat bottom and slightly rough and polishes it with sandpaper. This kind of sandpaper is not the industrially produced sandpaper of later generations, but shark skin. Shark skin itself is very rough, which can be used as natural sandpaper. After the upper surface is polished with sandpaper, a piece of flat glass is born. Of course, due to the process, sometimes the whole piece of glass may have problems, but even so, most of the glass is qualified and can be used as door and window glass. The most important thing is that his production efficiency has been greatly improved. An ordinary craftsman can quickly produce large pieces of flat glass. Unlike before, the size of the glass depends purely on the glass craftsman's lung capacity. Glass craftsmen with large lung capacity can blow out larger pieces of glass, while those with small lung capacity can only blow out palm-sized pieces of glass. After the large plate glass was available, the glass greenhouse was immediately modified. The original dense glass frame was removed and replaced with a glass frame with large gaps. In this way, the larger the glass pieces and the fewer frames, the better the light transmittance of the glass greenhouse. As for the high temperature required to grow tropical crops in a glass greenhouse, this is also very easy. When the weather is cold, you can just use a coal stove to boil water in the greenhouse. The water vapor from the hot water fills the entire greenhouse and can completely raise the temperature. During the day, in order to get better light, you need to send some women to frequently go in and wipe the glass surface inside the glass greenhouse with a rag. Because the water vapor attached to the inside of the glass will cause blurring, preventing sunlight from getting in. This is not necessary at night. If the glass is blurred, just wait until the sun rises the next morning and send a few serf women in to wipe the glass regularly. Although it is expensive to build a greenhouse, and using coal as fuel is also expensive, but can it be higher than transporting spices from faraway India? In fact, Marin was only slightly interested in growing spice crops in the glass greenhouse. He was more interested in growing off-season vegetables to satisfy his appetite. Large pieces of plate glass appeared just because Marin wanted to eat out-of-season vegetables.